James Scarlett, we go again.
Yes, we do, mate. How are you doing?
I am very, very good. I feel like I'm back to my full strength, and you seem pretty laid back at the moment too. Are things all going well for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty chilled. I'm still at 2,000 trees. So when does this podcast come out? Remind me.
The morning of, the
Oh
morning
yeah,
of. So if you are currently in your car driving to Upcote Farm, or you spent the Wednesday at Upcote Farm and you're a wee bit hungover in your tent this morning, and you thought, you know what would be great for a hangover? Gavin McAnally's voice. I always like Gavin McAnally's voice for a hangover. You will see us today at 2000 Trees, the Word Stage at 3:15. Come along, let's have a laugh.
amazing. You'll be looking a lot less sprightly than you are now, mate. You'll have had a fun time on the Wednesday, and
I tell you, James, see, I mean, I know you're only a couple of years older than me, but fuck me, man, you can go. I mean, you've got an engine on you when it comes to the weekend, especially Art Tangent. I mean, I left Art Tangent a crippled man, and I'm not to say that you don't get hangovers either, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's adrenaline at your festivals, it just gets you up and going one more time.
yeah, it's totally adrenaline. You only do it once a year, don't you? So you better, even though we've been doing it 17 years, this year will be my 25th festival. When Arctangent happens, me and Simon will have done 25 festivals. But you think about it, it's not a lot in the context of 17 years. So you better enjoy it.
Aye.
And I'm not gonna lie around feeling sorry for myself. But yeah, it's been a weird day here today because people because the podcast, this is a Thursday, and the podcast came out this morning, and everyone keeps coming up to me being like, "Oh yeah, I listened to you on the car on the way here." And like I bumped into my brother, and he's got his like speaker attached to his waist, and he's like, "Listen to what I'm listening to." And he's like working away, putting up some banners, listening to me and you chatting. So
I,
everyone here is listening to
I
us, which
have
is
to
great.
say, I appreciate Rob's support for the podcast, even if it's only to get digs at you. I still appreciate Rob's support for the podcast. That is going to be a strange one, because I swear, if I'm walking about anywhere at 2000 Trees, which will be in New Year's today, and I hear my voice elsewhere, that's going to be a little bit surreal. Never mind
Yeah.
the fact that just going to, because what we'll be doing, and again talking, and today, we'll be getting up, and who's the first thing we need to? We've got some sort of interview to do, and then we've got to see Meryl Streep.
Yeah, I think before that we're going to see Spanish love songs in the forest, which
Okay.
will be has got potential to be pretty magical, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Meryl Streep, and before that, yeah, we're going to do our first ever interview. Wow.
And this is aye, the whole thing's quite surreal. The whole thing's quite surreal. I woke up that day, right? And then the podcast itself. I'm sure that I outlined a plan to you what we're going to do for that podcast, but I've had a search and I can't find it, so I'm having a bit of panic. I think we need to go and find that again. And the merch is out, so all being well, the merchandise would have been available from yesterday. And you're waking up today and you saying, "Oh, I've seen a few guys with and a few people with the Two Promoters One Pod T-shirt. Well, here we go again on the back. Get yourself to the merch stall and pick that up."
Yeah, that'll be cool. I still get a buzz out of being at some random gig and seeing some festival merch from one of the festivals, and yeah, the podcast is going to be the next level of weird for that. So yeah, good. Bye.
It will. It will. Anyway, this is still the week before, and what are we doing today? We're doing a sort of Q&A. Well, a sort of similar to like the last episode, rather than just reading out exact questions, more topics that we can get through. And this, as I've described beforehand, will be a sort of placement for the Q&A, which would have come out at the end of the month. We really appreciate everyone sticking with us through this mental period. We will get podcasts out every Thursday, and by September, it'll be brilliant again. We'll be back up. We'll run. If we can make it through these next 8 weeks, we will be laughing with no more Wi-Fi connections and sites, no more holidays, and no more just being hanging after after getting a bit too wild at festivals.
Yeah, and I think just to be honest with people, like some episodes take me a couple of hours of prep, and I haven't got a couple of hours at the moment to do anything other than set up 2,000 trees. So yeah, you know, we've got some really interesting topics to cover once the summer's out of the way. In the gap between Arctangent and Damnation, we've got some interesting stuff that'll be a bit more in depth. And for now, we're just gonna fly by the seat of our pants, I think the phrase is, and
Yeah.
see what
Well,
happens.
the reaction to the this morning's, I mean, hopefully there'll never be a more chaotic podcast than the one we just put out, which was that Frankenstein episode of 7 different attempts over 5 days to get out. And from what I've seen so far, people quite enjoyed it and appreciated the effort. In fact, I saw one comment from a guy who said, I wasn't even expecting podcasts when you guys had festivals to plan. So aye, it's everyone's in the same boat here. We appreciate it. So
I wish you told us that a month ago.
if we knew we had a way out before we started, that would have been fine. But we're kind of, as you say, we committed to these. We committed to these every Thursday. People can rely on us, and so far so good. So touch wood, your connection today seems pretty good as well. So again, touch wood with that, and let's get in about it. I mean, Stuart Lucas is going to kick us off with a nice, easy topic that we can get into: gender equality in our lineups. What's our views on gender equality in our lineups, James?
um, well, look, this is something that people want to talk about a lot, and I am always a bit frustrated by it because I don't feel like I'm able to talk in a nuanced way about it. It's a very social media way where you get to say one line and then someone else shouts one line at you, and so it's quite nice to be able to talk about it here. I think. I mean, my thing is, I think it is really important that all types of people should be able to look up at the stage and feel like that they've got a role model that sort of fits well with them. Which it might be a young girl looking at a female on stage, but everyone should have that of all basically of all the myriad types of people in the world. Now, at 2000 Trees, that is quite easy to do, and I'll come on to why it's much harder to do at 2000 Trees. So in terms of gender equality, I think that 2000 Trees does a lot for that, and we are conscious of it. I am, as the booker, I am very conscious of making sure the lineup is well balanced, and it is well balanced. And I think if you're in a rock band, whatever gender you are, you're going to play 2000 Trees, and I will push your band. That is much more tricky at Arctangent because it's basically it's like four white dudes staring at their feet, isn't it? I mean, and I feel like you're probably going to say something similar at Damnation. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Arctangent has had lots of women on the stage, but it is, the percentage is always very low, and we do our best. Obviously, Roller Tomasi, Employed to Serve, etc. But it's dude rock, isn't it? And I don't know why that is. You look at the audience at Arctangent, and it's very, very male. Much more so than at 2000 Trees, which is very 50-50 split. I don't know. It's hard. Like, why don't women like post metal? It's like a question I think about. And look, my honest opinion on this, and when I talk about nuance, the one thing I always want to say to people is we should be thinking about this when kids are young. Like my brother's got 2 daughters, I've got a son. Everyone's a bit gender biased in their the presents they buy their kids, I think. If you want girls to like rock music, buy them a drum kit, right? Buy them an electric guitar, buy them a black t-shirt. That's how I feel about it. Like, by the time you're at the festival level, everyone's grown up and they've decided what sort of path they're taking. So there's only so much I can do. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah. I mean,
Like, I feel like if you're a parent and you believe in that, like, don't give your son the metal album and your daughter the pop album, or your son the football and your daughter the My Little Pony, because that is you just like reinforcing the gender bias of it.
yeah, yeah. And before, because I'll talk about this in a minute, and I've got a different view on it from Damnation. But before we do that, I don't think this podcast has ever heard the wonderful story of Refused at 2000 Trees, which I'll never
Wow.
tire of hearing. So please, can the audience at 2000 Trees and Two Promoters One Pod hear the Refused story?
Yeah, fucking hell, yeah. Okay. So Refused, legendary band. I was so excited that they were playing 2000 Trees. And I was like, every so often I say to a few of my mates that might be into that band, let's go up on the stage. I'll take you up on the main stage. We'll stand there and we'll watch Refused. Last song. We know what the last song is going to be, right? It's going to be New Noise. Let's go up there for it and watch it. And just before New Noise started, so I've got like 5 or 6 mates with me. Um, he the singer went on this like long sort of diatribe about gender equality, and I would say it was clear that he'd been doing it at every festival, and he was like criticizing the festival for not having enough women in bands and not having enough women in the crew, and he did this big thing where it's like they must aim for 50% next year, and you could tell he'd like it just felt rehearsed, like he'd done it at Download and he'd done it at Hellfest and he was going to do it at Tears and Trees and he was going to do it everywhere because it's like a thing that they believed in, and it really fucked me off because everyone was looking at all the people I was stood with on the side of the stage weren't looking at the band. They were all looking at me, being like, "Holy shit, what the fuck?" He's basically calling. He's
You
calling
out.
the he's calling the booking team out, which is me, right? So I got called out by a band that I really love for something that was totally unfair. And if they'd actually done any research into it, into the 2000 Trees lineup, they would have seen that as rock festivals go, it's the most probably the most diverse lineup out there. So
Yeah.
I felt like he went massively down in my estimation after that. It was not cool. You know, like those singers like Zach from Rage Against the Machine. I love the fact that they care about stuff, but you've got to have like thought it through.
Yeah,
And
you
he's
can't
just
you can't
fucking
copy and paste that across. You
yeah,
can't go to Hellfest and just go like, 90% men and
yeah.
10% women and just go to 2000 Trees and just assume that because you're still going to get the same pop with the crowd. Because at the end of the day, we're all just waiting for new noise. Aye, very good, mate. Let's get new noise going. But aye, it's just
When
it's a rough one.
and he's four white dudes in a band telling me I've got to like it's just totally hypocritical, I think.
I would love anyone who had knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes with Refused to tell us if their tour manager was male or female, if their sound or lights engineers were male or female, their bus driver was male or female, and see if they had a touring party of exclusively men. And they still had the goal to go stage after stage after stage around the world and tell festivals there should be more women in stages and more women in the crew. Then that just shows it's only performative. It's completely performative because they're doing nothing about it. Fair play, they happen to be four guys that were in the band and they wrote that music, so it's not as simple as just dropping in a female drummer. But our tour manager better be a woman, and our sound
Yeah,
engineer better be a woman because there's very good female sound engineers and very good female tour managers out there that we see year in year out. So I'd love to know what the situation is behind the scenes with Refused.
yeah, absolutely. And you know the saying, "Never meet your heroes." I mean, never stand on the stage at your own festival and watch one of your heroes fucking slag you off because it's not a good vibe. Um,
That must have been some pin in the balloon of new noise. It just sitting there going, "Fuck your band."
yeah, it took me quite a while to process what had even happened. It's like, oh right, okay.
Aye, it's a fucking. That was actually a dig just at me. Yeah. So yeah, gender equality. I come at it with Damnation from a very different point of view in that I give it no thought whatsoever. It's no consideration, and perhaps arrogantly, isn't that exactly what we're trying to get to? That there is no thought given. It's only about music, and there's reasons for how that works now. It doesn't work some years, like in 2016, without thinking about trying to get one woman booked for Damnation, there was 9 or 10 bands featuring women we had employed to serve in Venom Prison, Cult of Luna with Julie Christmas, Oceans of Slumber, Crow. I think who else was there? A few others at Svalbard. There was a few that we had, and it just seemed for whatever reason, it was almost like if you were to take one woman being in a band, the equivalent of 100% to against a all male band. It was almost it get close to 50-50 the Damnation would be. I never tried at all to book one woman. And I had a podcast with Serena Cherry, one of my favourite ones I've ever done with Damnation Versus, the day after that whole Holy Roar debacle. And you can look it up if you don't know what we're talking about, when they were basically didn't have a label. And she spoke at length, very eloquently, about positive discrimination still being discrimination and having this idea that, oh, we're going to create an all women stage at one of our European festivals and you're going to get picked because you happen to be a woman, so we're going to allow you to play is almost as condescending as just saying you can't play because you are a woman. And I was quite glad to hear that because that's kind of like, I don't, in a lot of these bands, I could book a band and find out 6 months later that the guitarist is a female because I don't pay any attention to people who are in bands either. So largely, if I'm getting Gillian Carter, it may well be that the drummer and the bass player are both women, or it may well be that they're both men. I won't. There's no way I'm going to look that up before I book them. I'm going to listen to the song and be like, "That's fucking incredible," and I'd like that at Damnation. And sometimes it does happen that you go, "Oh shit, there's two women in that band," or "There's a woman in that band," and that's the that's a bonus if we're having that discussion. There's also a part of this discussion I don't think ever gets talked about. What if you can't book that artist that's got to win? We desperately wanted Chelsea Wolfe this year. Chelsea Wolfe is on tour in the UK the day of Damnation, and instead of playing Damnation that we offered, she's playing like Brighton or Bristol, or she's playing somewhere else. Now, you'd had a situation by pure chance that Chelsea Wolfe could have potentially headlined or Cradle of Filth will get a woman in the band. Chelsea Wolfe's a woman in the band. Bleeding Through is a woman in the band. The top three artists on Damnation's main stage this year would have featured women. And it would have been by pure chance. You'd have got one of those posters that came out and said, look at all these bands that feature women or don't. And Damnation would have looked like I'd spent my whole year trying to book bands with women in it when I hadn't. I hadn't given it any thoughts whatsoever. So aye, that's kind of my approach to it. Fortunately, I think there is more women in rock and metal bands now than there was 20 years ago. Is that a safe thing to say? Certainly more that I know of, or maybe, but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
aye. So it's a bit like it is there, but at the same time, don't think for a second that I am not, or Weird Damnation doesn't desperately want to have Chelsea Wolfe, Baroness, Code Orange. I mean, all these, but we'd take every single one of them. But a lot of time, there is definitely a smaller pool of bands featuring women to book from, whether you're trying to do it or not. And even if you were trying to go for all that pool, Chelsea was a perfect example. They just might not fancy it.
And one of the things I think it's important to say, and actually, Andy Copping from Download, who we mentioned in the last episode, I went to talk with him, and he said he was asked this, and he basically said, "Look, I just want to sell tickets." And if we're really honest, when you're lying in bed at night shitting yourself about this massive risk that you're taking, you're not really thinking about gender equality. You're thinking about like whether or not you're going to lose your house. Um, and again, when I come back to saying I want to have a nuanced conversation, I think it should be okay for me to say that. Like, I am scared about the £2 million risk that we take every year. And yes, I want to book Paris for 2000 Trees, and they've never played. But frankly, I mean, this year it's like all the three headliners at 2000 Trees are male. They're
Yeah.
all male, I think.
But if
Is
you
that
were
true?
offered, how
I know
quickly
maybe that's not.
how quickly you're ripping the arm off the agent if you're offered Paramore?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, so I really just want to book bands that are big. And we got Hot Milk this year headlining the second stage. We got Wargasm headlining the third stage. I'm like, and it never really occurred to me that that was good for our gender balance, because I just want to book those bands because they're popular,
Yeah,
and they're good bands. So
yeah.
it's tricky, super
And
tricky.
I know this is an adult version of this conversation, but I know that in some places the only place exists is a Twitter. And yes, James and I are two male faces having this conversation. We understand this. We're not mansplaining anything to anyone. It's just that's our views on it.
Yeah, and look, I want to be clear. I'm gonna be honest that I am fucking terrified about having this conversation in this way, because one small part of what I just said maybe is wrong or not okay, and or what you said. And the social media is a terrifying place if you're somebody in our position as a festival booker. So happy to uh happy to discuss this with anyone ever, really. and
Yeah.
and and my feelings on it are constantly moving. But yeah, it's an interesting topic.
What we want you to take away from this is Chelsea Wolf should have played Damnation. That's the real heartbreaker, this whole situation. We wanted
Yeah.
Chelsea Wolf, she wouldn't do it. But aye. So That's that. Thanks for starting us off with a nice softball. Stuart Lucas, slightly more jovial. Harry Clark wants to follow up on Biffy Clyro not being able to do 2000 trees in our eyes or in the industry's eyes, because how can you go for trying to be main stage at Glastonbury and headline Leeds and Reading and download to playing 2000 trees? His point is, what if you were to try and do something off the wall when you had like a special Biffy Clyro B-side set? What do you think of that?
I mean, I think that when I was chatting to Simon at 2000 Trees, or I can't remember if it's 2000 Trees or Tangent last year, he was basically saying we'll come and play for first three albums. Like Biffy's career is very much like the first three albums are like critically acclaimed. They were quite niche. They were playing to when they played in London, they were headlining 2000 cap venues. And then from then on, they kind of exploded. So he was like, and to be honest, people like me prefer the first three albums, you know. So that's good. And he was thinking like, let's do that. And I think they've subsequently announced some shows in Glasgow and London where they are playing those first three albums.
Yeah.
Um, B-sides is a whole new world, man. I mean, are there any bands? I cannot name you one band that I want to see a B-side set off. I mean, the Wild Arts, I know a few Wild Arts B-sides. I think they're the only bands that I actually know B-sides off. And anyone under the age of 30 listening to this is thinking, what the fuck is a B-side?
I tell you what, James, Wild Hearts is definitely getting added to the bingo card, by the way. Where the fuck did this band come from? See
Mate,
when you recommended Wild Hearts 2 weeks ago, there's never been more conversation, more feedback about why the Wild Hearts are amazing. Almost like I was arguing back, like this is a machine. I never said that Wild Hearts were good or bad. I never had an opinion. No, Gav should fucking listen to James. James is right again. I'm like, for fuck's sake. How
what
this
did you
become
think? Have you listened to that song?
I did listen to the song. It was okay.
On
I mean, I don't think, like, listen to this, James, right? I don't think for a second anyone hears that tune for the very first time and goes, this is an absolute 10 out of 10 banger. That struck me as a song that Wild Hearts fans have grown to love, and it's become one of those sleeper tunes. It becomes one of your favourite because it wasn't Screamager by Therapy. Now, I'm not even, if I listen to it another million times, it's still no Screamager by Therapy. But the Wild Hearts have clearly got some, not only have they got some bangers, they have got a very dedicated fan base that are ready to sharpen their knives if you say it about them. So there's no discrediting the Wild Hearts for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm satisfied with your answer there, but I feel like I'm gonna every on the record now is just gonna be the Wild Arts. But going back to I mean B-sides, I just think it's too niche, isn't it? Like how many bands do you like Oasis have got that one really famous B-side. And I just think B-sides are B-sides. They're not like I went to see Therapy do Troublegum 10 years ago and they played Troublegum plus a load of B-sides. And it's just like, you know,
The B-sides for a reason.
yeah, I mean it's
I mean, I
yeah,
think not Harry's probably sitting there kicking the wall going, I just used B-sides as an example. I think what it just meant is if you were trying to do something a bit more experimental so it wasn't seen in the eyes of the industry, or Biffy Clyro was, this is you getting the same as what we would do headline and download.
yeah.
And it wouldn't downgrade a Biffy Clyro performance at a festival in the eyes of the major festivals. No, when you said about the three, so hypothetically, Biffy Clyro come for 2025, 2026 and say, okay, James, it's time, we're going to do it. The three albums, but we need to headline all three nights. What do you say to that?
I mean, it's super tricky. I think it's really tricky because you got to be fucking careful that you're not like, I don't know, because then you could then, one of the things I've always been worried about booking a bigger band is that you flood your festival with people that are never going to come again.
Yep.
So, because I want Biffy to be there to play to the 2000 Trees audience. I don't want Biffy to be there to play to the Biffy Clyro audience because that's mad. Because
Counterproductive.
you next year you won't have a festival, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's the argument of Deftones playing Damnation, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
of course, you're going to sell out Damnation, but you're going to sell out Damnation to a Deftones crowd that are not interested in coming back. And then if none of your Damnation audience can get in that year and feel as if they've been left out, maybe they don't come back, and then you don't have a festival.
yeah. But you can't. What you want to do is announce Deftones now in July for Damnation in November when you sold like a shit ton of tickets already. So you got the hardcore and then you get some more. and I think that works. So yeah, it's it's super tricky with these big like super bands. I think. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no to B sides.
Not to be sides. The Joshua Patel. I'm interested in this one because this is something I give a lot of thought, but I'm not quite sure how to manage it with Damnation. Increasing the younger audience, having an appeal, broadening your appeal to get a younger audience in. Well, that's a tough one for Damnation because the kind of bands we book that work for us are very much that old school your Electric Wizards, Carcasses, and that's the fan base we get. But what do you? I mean, 2003 seems like a dream for that because you guys are just continually churning out the new best flavor of the month, the new hot thing that's coming through. But talk about, is that something you put thought into, or is it the fact that just the way that this festival's structured that you can do that, and is that less easy with something like Arctangent?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was about 27 when 2003 started, and now I'm 45. You know, it's like so. I feel at the age of 27, you're still like in touch with what 18-year-olds would listen to, and now I'm not really like I am not sitting at home listening to Hot Milk and Wargasm. That isn't to say that I don't think they're good bands. But I've got no interest in listening to that music at home. It is not made for me. So that's a thing I think about a lot because if I'm going to be the booker, you've got to, and you know, I've brought Mitch onto the team, and I mean, Mitch is not 18 either. I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but he's like much closer to that than I am, and he's more connected to what an 18-year-old would listen to, and I think it's really important for 2000 Trees because 2000 Trees is a, you know, to use a very generic term, a popular rock festival. Like it's like what rock music is popular, that should be at 2000 Trees. And I think if 2000 Trees just went down the like Let's Book Refused and 100 Reasons and Hell is for Heroes and the Wild Arts, it would be the death of it. I really want to introduce those bands to the young people, but like this year's almost perfect. It's like Gaslight Anthem headlining one night, you know, OGs from sort of 2009 maybe, and then the Chats and You, they're on the second album I think, and Don Broker are somewhere in the middle. They've got a young fan base, but they're not new by any means. So that feels like perfect for Trees. So we're still bringing new people in for, you know, Wargasm, Nova Twins, Hot Milk, Arctangent. It's not a consideration. The consideration of Arctangent is this an Arctangent lineup? And if it is, then I will book it. And maybe one day people will go, there's no fan base for this anymore. And if that happens, what can you do, really?
Yeah,
If you show, you know, this year's Arctangent lineup, if just no one came, then the concept of the festival's broken. And the one thing I really think about Arctangent type music, and this got potential to sound very pretentious, is that it's not what you listen to when you're 18. We spoke in the last episode that I was in my sort of mid-20s before I got into the crazy shit. I just don't think that many people are ready to, you know, go a bit out there with their music taste.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely you're definitely in that age bracket of Damnation. When you're going to Arctangent and Damnation, you do feel like it's that same. Yeah, people late 20s, 30s, into their 40s, probably the vast majority rather than teenagers. For Damnation, I mean, even thinking of that, try to think an answer. I mean, obviously, we would love more women to come to, and that was the thing about when I was at Outbreak last weekend. Like, you couldn't believe, honestly, it was like almost like 50-50. There's so many women, and you're like, fuck, that'd be amazing. It'd be amazing to attract more women to that. And it's not like you're not looking at, in fact, the entire day as I looked at the stage, where you're like your Mind Force and Have Heart and um, Show Me the Body and Ceremony. I don't think I saw a woman playing. I mean, obviously there would have been over the weekend at some point, but I don't think I saw a woman on stage. So it wasn't a case like, oh, here's thousands of women showing up at this hardcore rock metal festival because all it is just female artists. That clearly wasn't the case. But we'd love that, and likewise, we'd like to get younger people. But I mean, somebody help me in that. I mean, who do you book? I mean, what's even the closest thing you could get away with at Damnation that would start to get to a younger audience like a Malevolence? Like, I mean, they're a band that's still been going for themselves for like fucking 10 plus years. So And where do you get? Because you can't go Wargasm at Damnation. I mean, that's just not going to work. And there's a lot of bands that maybe have a genuinely younger fan base in the metal world who just. But I feel like you get turned on to new bands, and let's say like Glassing, for example, we'll maybe chat about in a bit. But it's just all the same people. Like, it doesn't matter if Glassing are 2 years old or into their career or 20 years. It's just the same guy. So it's just me talking to my pals and my pals talking to their pals about Glassing. And it's just that we're still in the same age group. So have you got any examples of W? Or you know what? Here's an absolute spot on metal band who would go down a storm at Damnation and do bring a younger fan base.
No, because the metal the metal that is popular now with young people is like the metalcore, isn't it? So it's like it's sort of the sort of Bad Omens, and then there was a bunch of it on loads of it on download this year, and it would actually arguably fit 2000 Trees way better than Damnation because it's just not really Damnation, and
Yeah.
I do think like rock and metal is like secular, so secular. Is that correct? Is that the correct word? Fucking hell.
We
Is that the
get
correct
you.
word? I'm asking you to give me linguistic advice here, Gav. But it goes in circles, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yes.
Cycles, but it comes back. So we could have this conversation in 5 years about Damnation, and it'll be like, oh man, the thrash revival or the doom. You know, isn't it weird that doom became cool? You know, so it's not that it will never be that there's a younger audience. I just think at the moment that would really jar. My opinion is that what is popular with young people into heavy music is that would really jar. Unless you want to go and steal a bit of Outbreak's crowd. You talked about Not Loose the other day, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Something like, I mean, if fuck is as massive as they're getting it, but if you get like Harriet and Pupil Slicer are two bands where you're booking them, you're like, these are genuinely younger people than I am. And I don't know what age they are, but they can't be much beyond their mid-20s. But the folk that are listening to them are me and the Damnation fan base, and the people at the top of Harriet are the Damnation fan base. And you're like, well, how does that work? You know what I mean? So you're not as if you're just going out and saying, oh, let's get guys in their 50s playing metal riffs that they've been doing for 30 years. You're booking your Harriets and your Pupil Slicers, and then the people that are listening to them are still us. So, you know,
Yeah,
like, what the fuck? What's the answer? What is the answer? And then now, make things worse, the younger people getting into metal are listening to Limp Bizkit and Korn.
yeah. It's tricky. It is really tricky that I think, and you know, because obviously you want to be doing this job in 10 years' time or whatever. So you know, you
Aye,
got to.
aye,
There will be people do retire from going to festivals and shows. I mean, it's more of a risk for me because I've got to get them in a tent. You know, getting
yes.
people to camp in the rain at Arc Tangent. You know,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a
Although,
challenge.
although we did mention on the podcast in a previous episode, I said for the 20th anniversary, the 20th Damnation, we could do Saturday, Sunday, and fucking the Damnation had a meltdown. Like, what do you mean Sunday as well? What, finish at 7:30? I need to go home.
Yeah, none of that.
Outbreak. 4 days later, people fucking an ambulances leaving. Now we're saying, oh, let's get a Monday doing as well. Damnation crowd's like, oh shit, can we finish at 7:30? I need to catch a tram. Ah, right, okay. It's leading on slightly for that then. Fave new bands of 2024 from Matthew David, and I think what it means is that's bands that we've got in 2024 rather than bands that have become bands in 2024, which would be quite an achievement if they're already your favourite band and they've been a band for 6 months. So, aye, who's been on your radar recently in the last 6 months into the year?
um, well, it's hard not to just bang on about the same bands, but just reminding people they should definitely check out Unpeople. You should definitely check out Vower, the new band from Black Peaks, Palm Reader, because they're going to be fucking great. They're playing at both my festivals. I think the Meths is worth reiterating to people. Frank Turner brought them up the other day,
Yeah,
and uh,
they're on the record playlist, the Meffs as well, so you can have a bit of that action.
yeah, and I'd actually read different. I'd read into this question differently to you because I thought it was new bands, but if it's bands that I've just got into, then fucking hell. I mean, Duel, uh, Interama, Spectral Voice, I really like. I don't think I've ever recommended an on the record for Spectral Voice. They're fucking great. Toad Liquor. There's a lot of like filthy, horrible stuff out there.
To be fair to the guy, he might have meant that. He might have meant more your unpeoples and vowels. I was just like, fuck me, that's quite a, as I say, it's quite an achievement to get. I mean, if you're a band and you've just came out the traps January, it's tough to get in people's radar just that quickly. But clearly not for you because you're a man in the know.
Well, I'm not really. I only because I really love listening to music and discovering new bands. But yeah, I mean, there's I don't consider a new band to be a band that's just come out. It takes about 4 years to get it all going, really, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Um, you know,
aye,
so.
for people to notice. I mean, myself, I went down. I've repeated some of these bands across the episodes as well. But I'm writing a screamo place at the minute, and Glassing, Frail Body, and Gillian Carter are three that really stood out when I read that question. Hugely looking forward to seeing Glassing and Frail Body at Art Tangent, and massively looking forward to seeing Gillian Carter at Damnation. If you like any one of those three bands, the chances are you're going to like the other two as well. Just that whole full throttle sort of screamo, emo violence, as folk like to call it now. And I've also had a shout out for Meryl Streep, who again, and he's technically still a new artist. I think he's got one album under his belt. So, aye, Irish sort of spoken word punk that I'd recommended before and is also on the on record. So those are bands that we're definitely into. Jack
Do you feel
Fryer
that?
is
Do you feel? Sorry, Gav. Do you feel that there's some pressure on you for Meryl Streep because a week today there's going to anyone who's listened to the podcast is going to be there, and they're not going to be watching the band; they're watching you. You've talked a lot about Tops Off and getting involved, and I think everyone's going to. There's going to be a level of expectation. Do you feel that?
I'm telling you right now, don't do that, right? Because there's no tops off, as fucking James keeps saying, right? There is no taps off. It's going to be one in the afternoon. I've got a podcast to do. And also, I don't think it's that type of crowd. I mean, I've seen live videos. I don't think it's going mental. So,
Right.
no, fuck, please. And see if I do, James. See if you start to see that wee glint in my eyes. Just tap me on the shoulder and say, "No,
No,
yet, Gavin."
no chance. No chance.
This is not the time or place, Gavin. We've got a podcast to do. Please keep your top on. So, I no, definitely not, definitely not. Anyway, Jack Fryer is asking Damnation open air. Which, fun enough, we laughed about in the last one because you were saying if Damnation ever came outdoors, we would go head to head and then you would die. So, 2014, I looked into it for the 10th anniversary or the 10th Damnation. I looked into it and I actually put, I mean, I wrote the application to sort of Leeds. There's a site in Leeds that does outdoor events, and I wrote an application to them, and I started looking into different bits and bobs like Harris fencing and toilets and all that kind of jazz. But we get knocked back almost instantly. It was like a name damnation when the Leeds City Council came back and just knocked it in the head straight away. And I thought, you know what, this is fucking a lot of effort for something that. Why am I doing it? Like what? Like I feel like because we're going to try and do that for that 1 year, almost guaranteed it would have been a financial flop. I try to go because you really need to go and do it for a number of years.
Yeah.
And there was never try to be the more than the 1 day to start with, and you would definitely there's no point getting all set up to try and do it 1 day. So thank you to Leeds City Council, whoever that was, and I'm almost certain it was purely because it was under the name Damnation. I thought it was going to be a bunch of devil worshippers coming up and sacrificing goats on their land. So I thank you, whoever
I
that
love your
was.
confidence that it wasn't your shitly written application.
I said there's a lot of things I do chaotically, but usually writing stuff isn't that. So, aye, it was. I get knocked back very quickly, and I was like, right, okay, and I'm glad it did because I know from the likes of yourself how much effort is in that. And you see some of these events like your Manor Fest and your Dominions. Dominion was a festival that was backed by people who had done that 100 times before. They'd done huge, successful nostalgia events. They'd done huge, like your big countries, and they had pops and rave. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they couldn't even manage it. They couldn't even get an event off the ground in Newcastle. Manifest was its own thing. I think they just never realised the scope of what it was going to take. I did, but I was willing to give it a chance. Now I'm glad I didn't, and I know as I said, we're plenty quite happy where we are in the calendar, which rules out ever going outdoors anyway. and there's space to grow. I mean, if you look at Outbreak, you could do much more with Beck anyway. You could do something outdoors. If we would ever use that outdoor space, we'd probably put a big tent up. But aye, there's plenty of that. But Jack, if you ever thought about Damnation Open there, I think it is well catered to, not only in the UK but across. I mean, between Download and your Bloodstock's catered to in the UK, and it's not that expensive to go to any of the ones across Europe. If you really want to scratch that itch of a big 4 day festival with your Sabatons, then you can go and do that. So Damnation's is what it is.
And there's like, I think there's like two things you got to think about in that regard. One is, do the Damnation crowd even want to do that? Do they want to go and get in a tent? And that may, some will and some won't. So you risk it. That's a risk, isn't it?
Yeah,
And also, let's not forget, the price would be higher. So do they want to pay more and go in a tent?
yeah,
That's the one thing. And then the second thing is, logistically, it's a massively different thing, which you could definitely pull off. And obviously there's people all over the place, not least me, who've made all the mistakes. And you don't have to make all the mistakes like you and I did back in the day. But really, do your audience want it? Is the hard part, isn't it?
yeah. And then you go out and then you're about, okay, so currently you're struggling to get the 6,000. If we're being honest, but last year you're struggling to get the 6,000 tickets to fill the arena. Now, you're definitely going to need at least those 6,000 tickets at a higher price to be outside. What bands are you using? What bands are you getting? So now you're going down a path that I've vocally said I don't want to go down. You know what I mean? That I'm not looking.
Machine Head.
Yeah, fucking machine. Well, Julie Christmas, Bosk, Tom Begley, Hayden Britland. There you go. Fucking drunk. So no, that is not one for me. I have no. I would. It was always part of me. I suppose there's always a wee bit forever. They'd be like, "Oh my god, to be James Scarlett and stand in that mainstream, look across your open air field." But you know what? I'll pretend I'm James Scarlett for 30 seconds next week, and that'll scratch that itch. I'm like, Mark Redman. This question kind of depressed me a wee bit because I don't really have a lot of these. But favourite backstage moment?
Well, Mark is my oldest friend. Hi, Mark. He's coming here tomorrow. He was instrumental in setting up 2000 Trees, and
Oh, fantastic.
he's a carpenter, and he's not been here to help us set up for about 10 years. So good time to ask his first question. Favorite backstage moment? I feel like he's looking for rock and roll stories.
He's clearly not been backstage enough then.
No, it's my favorite rock and roll story is that once I was on my way to bed and where we keep the headliners at 2000 Trees is near my caravan, and I was on the way back there, and I saw that the Bronx were just hanging out in the barn. They were all just hanging out, and the guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm one of the organizers," and we're having a really nice chat. And he said to me, "Have you ever had an apple bong?"
Apple bong.
Apple bong. And I was like, "No, I don't know what an apple bong is." So my favorite rock and roll story is that I smoked an apple bong with the Bronx. Mum, I meant to start this story by saying, "Mum, turn off now." We could end up cutting this, Gav.
No. Well, even if we freeze, I swear, I fucking put a foot in it. We are not asking Bright to edit a second of this podcast.
I still don't quite know how the smoke passes through the apple, but it does. But my oh man, I'm going to regret that. I think I'm under a high stress at the moment, Gav, and I've told a story publicly that I might not want to. One of my favorite ever backstage moments, moving on, was last year at Arctangent, when I think we might have touched on this before. The Thursday at the main stage was like Mates Fest, and it was like Russian Circles, Converge, Empire State Bastard, and they were all just Cave In, and they were all just hanging out, and I was like, oh my god, I'm just like surrounded by like fucking. It's like they're all like fame in my head. I mean, not in the real world, but in my world, they're all fucking famous. And
Yes.
in reality, the only one that's famous is Simon from Biffy, but all the others, I'm just totally in awe of. I'm in awe of the Converge drummer. I'm in awe of Stephen Brodsky from Cave In.
Yeah.
And I was just like hanging out with them, and they were hanging out, and it was like, I've got a cool job.
Yeah.
Sometimes meeting your heroes, as we talked about is pretty painful. Thanks, refused. But this was really cool. So yeah, that's my other answer.
Did you offer
When
him
when,
did you offer him an apple bong?
when we cut the Applebong story out, that's going to
Well,
be the
no,
one that's.
no. So what I want to happen right at trees, which will be today, and then the days of, if you see Big James, ask him about his apple bong, all right? You just see his face going, for fuck's sake.
What's your fucking hell? What's your answer, Gav?
What is my answer? You know, that's why I said, Mark, you depressed me a wee bit because what have I got almost 20 years of these backstage modes. I find I find that anytime I'm backstage, 99.9% of the time, it's because there's a problem. It's because you're dealing with some shit. You're arguing with some tour manager or band or try to get something. I mean, I'm just not a backstage kind of guy. So I wish, in fact, see this year, I'm going to go and make some memories. I'm going to find an apple and some bastard that wants to make a bong at it, and I'm going to make my own memories for Damnation 2024 because. Coming thinking about it, maybe going back and meeting the guys for Bolt Thrower after absolutely smashing that, and that even that wasn't like sitting with him for too long. We just got a picture taken and to see how much I enjoyed it and getting some merch. So that was kind of cool. I'm sure if I sat down went year by year, there would probably be something that stood out. But there's nothing. There's definitely never been a big hang with some band that I thought were fucking legendary and get to know. I wish I'd probably done a wee bit more of that. And I feel like that's a become theme in this podcast when we talk about meeting artists and backstage and that kind of stuff. I'll be like, I still even do Damnation a lot like how a fan would do Damnation.
Do you want to know what my favorite backstage Damnation story is?
Tell me.
Um, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna mention the name of the band, so don't get panicky. Me and you were chatting, and there was quite a well-known band that I had previously fallen out with,
Right.
and 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 he was walking up, and he was walking past us. He wasn't going to talk to us. Me and him had fallen out, and you basically put him in a headlock, pulled him over, and you were like, "You owe Big James an apology." It was like we were in the school playground. You were giving him a little scrub on the head. You remember that, Gav, right?
I do remember that. I do remember that. I have no idea what band you're talking about. So
It's
moving
a
on.
long time ago, long time ago.
Andrew Proctor would like, oh, so we're talking about merch. And then merch coming out. And we had this conversation. We were just going to put the pocket with the chest print out. Two promoters, one pod. People have been asking pretty much since the start, is there a way to support the pod? I would argue go and hit like, subscribe, a Spotify rating, an Apple rating, comment. Let us know. Even today's podcast went out and like the downloads were absolutely fine. But almost no feedback, and I hate that. I'm like, that's so it must be when somebody puts out an album and they're just waiting for any sort of feedback, even to say it's shit. But you're a bit like, fucking, what's this? 2,000 people so far have listened to this episode, and there's one person said, "Oh, I enjoyed it." You're like, there's another 1,999. You know what I mean? So, feedback. I'm always massively into hearing your thoughts on all of it, even the bits that you want us to improve on. In fact, in a lot of cases, I like to hear that even more because I want to improve on it. So, the t-shirts are a way for if you want to support it, they will be out. They'll be at Trees this weekend, obviously. And then we will get them listed on a site. We were just doing the front pocket print, and then everybody's saying if it doesn't have "We Go Again" on it somehow, I'm not buying it. So we end up getting the back print done. "We Go Again," but his his idea was James's face in the merch with above it "Amazing,"
Right.
which
So, go on.
which I wasn't going to bring up, right? But I noticed, right, for the first 10, 15 episodes, anything that, like, if I said something, you'd finish, you're going, "Amazing," right? And then you'd start your bit. And then without ever having a conversation about it, you stop doing it. You stop saying "amazing." And it always makes you ask, at some point, did you click or did someone say to you that you always say "amazing"?
Mate, everyone I fucking know is taking the piss out of me for it. And Andrew Proctor is a friend from school, the fucker, who's come on. So it Rob, my brother's like playing drinking game with me saying "amazing." So look, you've all made me very self-conscious, and I'm trying really hard not to say the word "amazing." I think I will have a t-shirt of me saying "my face is amazing" if we have one, because your thing, Gav, I don't know if you know this, we haven't talked about this before, is that you ask me all the time how I pronounce it. How do you pronounce this band name? Just before you mispronounce the band name. so so
And
that's your version of
also,
amazing.
see, when I know I'm going to pronounce something wrong, I pronounce it wrong anyway, and then pronounce it the other way, and both might be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I always just to be clear, I always pronounce the bands Touche Amore. I
Yeah.
have no, and I don't, and you've got two versions, and it's not that. But I don't know if I'm right. I might be wrong as well.
I was I was on the sort of VIP area. I sitting beside the guy Sam Wonner. I called it Tosha Moore, right? And the guy for Krang literally stopped doing what he was doing and said, "What did you say?"
Yeah, it's not that.
It's definitely fucking not that, Gav, no matter what way you like Tushy Amori, right? Aye, but
I,
amazing. You know what's great about that whole, and the reason I even that I've selected at the time, not knowing anything about this Andrew Proctor or the fact that anyone had ever mentioned to you, that I just noticed that somewhere between, I don't know, episode 15 and episode 20, you just stopped doing it completely. And I was like, someone's mentioned that to him. Somebody's mentioned that he says amazing.
everyone, everyone, fucking everyone.
It was always so subtle, I thought, because you got amazing, then you get started rather than it be like, I don't know, something that's out there, like we go again. You'd be like, for fuck's sake, couldn't stop doing that. Well, I always thought it was quite subtle, and I was like, that's good that he does that. And also, but it's your thing, but no
It's
more
just me
amazing.
saying I like what you said, Gav, and now I'm ready to start talking. But totally subconsciously, it just kept coming out.
Oh,
I'm trying to rein
oh.
it in now.
You've been taking it rough, like old friends today.
Mate, you're laughing nearly as much as when Cam told the story about the rapper.
Oh.
It's good.
Because maybe I should be self-conscious about the fact because that the mispronunciation of almost everything that I say. But I mean, I'm saying Lowe's Bruise, and people are thinking it's Loose Bruce. So for me, I'm fucked even if I say it right. It still sounds like fucking dog shit. So Jodie Power, tell me, do you know who Jodie Power is?
Don't think so.
Right, okay. So we've got a question for somebody that isn't related or knows you in some way, shape, or form. Jodie Power wants to know what the plan B is when festivals are too expensive for fans. What's your opinion on that, James?
I don't. Well, I don't believe in Plan Bs. I think there's some like I don't know someone like Elon Musk or fucking I don't know somebody really successful said once that fuck Plan Bs. Like who has a Plan B?
But I think that it's more she's being sarcastic in the sense of
She's
what
saying our festivals are too expensive.
I don't think she means us because I tell you what, I have we're going to do an episode where the exact cost of festivals, and I've been looking back at some of the prices. It wasn't even that long ago. The Damnation's ticket was like 36, £38. And now, even still, only went up for 75 now to a full price at 80. I am just back this weekend from a festival. It was £105 per day in the same venue with reasonably similar bands in stature. And I I can't see anything comparable to Damnation that's as cheap as Damnation. So I don't believe for a second. And also, you're getting your downloads and your Hellfest and your VIP areas at all these festivals are absolutely packed. So I'm nowhere near thinking that £75 is too expensive. In fact, my daughter, who is fucking what age? 14, 15, she paid £210 of her own money that she had to save up over birthdays and Christmas to see Olivia Rodrigo. How do you pronounce that?
Mate,
Olivia
I'm glad
Rodrigo.
to say I don't know.
So, mate, if anything, if you can get a younger fan base, they think that anything under £100 is almost free. They're just coming, it's absolutely free. So, yes, is metal very tough to sell to? Yeah. Did everybody still think a t shirt should be £10? And because they went to see Megadeth in the 80s for £6, they should still be able to do that. There is a sort of underlying fucking feeling with that you need to tussle with. But at 75, £80 at Damnation's too cheap. So I am not thinking it's too expensive. And I've seen an example of as long as you put a product that people like, they will pay far in excess of that to come and do at metal events all over the world. So
Yeah,
there is no plan B as such. I'm as far as I'm concerned, we're in a sweet spot. It's up to whether you think because you know what? Here's the thing, right? A gig can be free. You can get a free gig and it can be empty, can't it?
yeah,
Ultimately, it's not about the price. You can walk into a place and see four local metal bands play, but if the four metal bands that no one knows or cares about, you're still not going to that if it's free. So you put four metal bands want to make it £100, as long as people give a shit about the headliner, people pay £100 for it. So, aye, that's my feeling on the expense. And I don't know, how do you feel about the pricing of your festivals? You think they're in line with what you get elsewhere?
I mean, pretty much everyone in business ever, if you sell Mars bars or festivals or whatever, wishes they knew what the price they can charge to get the right number, the right sales, and you don't. You don't know what the demand for those tickets is at all at different prices. So, in a totally like, we're a nice, friendly, cuddly festival, right? But we're trying to charge the most we can get away with. Of course we are, because it's very expensive to put on. So we don't know what that is. And like I saw Download get loads of shit for putting their tickets back on sale. And I don't know how much more expensive they are, but from what I read online, they're more expensive. People seem pissed off. I mean, obviously there comes a point where you're like, I could just go to Tenerife for 2 weeks and not go to Download. And you've got to be careful
Yeah,
about that, because
yeah.
people will. But I don't think with that. Well, look, 2000 Trees is about to have its best ever year. Arctandon is about to have its best ever year. So, in terms of number of people on site, so I don't know. It's a tricky one.
I, I find it very tricky because you do this from your own moral standpoint, or like I'm a working class guy, and coming up from a family that didn't have money. I look at everything like, oh, that price, and you always try to keep it at a reasonable price of what you can make a successful business with, but also people can afford to do. But then as I've said before, I'm right into my MMA and UFC, and I listen to a lot of Americans. Americans don't work like that at all. They work like your gate, i.e., what you can get. That's your success. Your measure of success that is an American football team, a sports league, whatever. So they come to Manchester and they make the cheapest price to go and see a UFC card, 550. Now they don't care whether that's unreachable for a working class Manchester family. They're just like, if they can fill that, and they will fill it with tickets between 550 and 15 grand, their gate will be, I mean, everyone will celebrate it, and you'll move on. So I'm looking at our VIP area. We've got a small Star Wars bar, which we only put tickets on sale to the people that are on our forum. But it only takes 300 people. And I know for a fact, £60 a ticket, that would still sell it in a day. It would
Yeah.
easily sell it in a day. But we're thinking about £29 a ticket. And even at £29 a ticket, with two lanyards, that would be a tenner between the two of them. I'm a bit like, oh, 15 quid a day, you'd only get up. It's just a different place to sit and a different toilet. So I'm humming and hawing about, is £29 too much? And do we really need to add that on these people that I want to say thank you for supporting us through the forum? And you're like, that different mindset that you're tussling with, like a big business or somebody to take over, damnation, they would go £80 to £100 for that
Yeah.
VIP area. People will pay for 2 days for £50 a day for a VIP upgrade. People will pay it. I guarantee it. And you'll sell out the 300 tickets and you make a shitload on the side on a festival you didn't even make money at last year. And then you get me being a bit like, oh, you know what, but there isn't that much cost and it's only a bit of security and a bit of that. And it's just, I have that tussle and I'm the one making the decision solely when it comes to that. And you're a bit like, well, be ripping the arse out of people that you want to support and have their support to where's the profit margin and how much profit do you want to make?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to regret the angle I'm going here, but there's this thing called the Pareto principle, which is like it splits everything 80-20, right? And there's a sales and marketing concept, which is you basically make 80% of your profit from 20% of your audience. And you can keep splitting it. So you can take your whole audience and split them 80-20, and you will make 80% of your profit from 20% of your audience. And you can then split that 20% 80-20 again, and you will keep you're able to make more money from each of those smaller and smaller groups. Because basically some people like my mate Mark have got money to burn, and when they come to your event, not only are they going to not blink about 80 quid to get in the Star Wars bar, they're gonna get a fucking Winnebago outside the venue for £6,000. Someone somewhere is basically just going, please take my money.
Yeah,
I have got money and I want to spend it.
yeah.
Yes, I want to get into VIP. Yes, I want better accommodation. And it's hard when you're trying to be like, particularly in your position as like the face of damnation, and you're so honest with people, but you also want to make the numbers work as well. So
Yeah,
it's tricky.
especially now because this is like I think because the first time we put it on, it was like 15 or 20 quid, right? And then okay, but that year made money because the first year, didn't you? Like, oh, that's absolutely fine. And I'm not a damnation doesn't need squeeze for every bit of profit it can get because there's a million other ways. We can VIP in tier 1, tier 7, and we can put a golden circle at the side, and we can there's a million things, put all the merch price up. There's thousands, tens of thousands profit to be squeezed out of damnation. But then you do last year and you're still here sitting at the fucking kitchen table with your wife and kids, like, I just done a year's work and didn't make any money. So listen, it's not a charity either. There has to be some level where you can go to bed at night and say, no, I'm still not trying to just rip the piss out of people that don't have the money for it. But at the same time, I don't want to rip the piss out myself. So aye, it's maybe I could have done me a wee bit of that that marketing class.
I'll send you the book, mate. It's a good book.
So I mean, you're right, but you get people that come, you see them as well. It's like I've got friends that in the metal community that have got the money against the ones that might not have the money, and the ones that might not have the money like come in. And if they can get a free can off you and they can get something cheaper at one of the food stalls and have a good day, then great. But they've paid their money to get in, or even if it's a guest pass. But they're there and they support the event and they shout about it loudly. And then you get the other ones that just come in and it's like, fucking round of Jaegers and I'm going to buy 2 hoodies, the top and a pair of shorts. And like, next thing you know, the guy spent £500 he's in the venue for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's like, but that's because he's getting money to do that. So you're totally right. That concept makes sense when you think it through.
Didn't know we were going down that. that was not the road I thought we would go down, but there we are.
I think that wraps us up for that. I don't know how long we were going there, but probably over an hour again, just in chatting. Our good talking about heroes, Lose Brews, LOU_BREWS. That's how you pronounce it, Lose Brews. He'll have sauces on sale today at 2000 Trees called 2000 Degrees, which is quite a clever name. And where will we get them, James? Where can you grab
merch
them?
Tent. Merch tent. The merch tent is it's a good place at 2000 Trees. There's a lot of cool stuff, cool exclusive stuff. So yeah, check it out.
Once you've picked up your 2000 Trees football shirt and your Two Promoters One Pod t-shirt, grab yourself a wee bottle of Lose Brews. Or if you're up against it financially this weekend, come to the podcast, ask us a cracking question, and we'll throw you about a bottle out for nothing. So we're all winners. Lose Brews, Pod 15 on his site, still offering 15% off all orders, every flavour of hot sauce you could possibly imagine.
Did when you and Lou were together and you slept on his floor last week?
Couch.
You know when me and you were together at Download, whenever we were on our own, all we talked about is the podcast. When you were with Lou, whenever you're on your own, was it just like hot sauces / podcast? Is that?
It was.
Were you at 5:30 in the morning going? Oh, that is a hot one, that.
It wasn't too bad. We still had the guy for Pine with us till about the back of 5. So thankfully there was. You know what? At one point we were just watching these music videos on some fucking YouTube channel. I actually got a wee bit surreal for a bit because we were that fucking drunk. Watching cover bands of God knows what. So that was a good night. But he does want to continue this sponsorship. It was done in such a fucking haphazard way at the start. I'm not quite sure how, why, and when, but he does want to continue the sponsorship. We shouldn't be discussing this on the podcast, but why not? There are other companies that want to sponsor the podcast too. We've had a few inquiries, so when you're not knee deep in the grass at Upcote Farm, we need to discuss that because I don't know, I'm in a wee bit of a weird spot with it that I don't really want to be talking about companies that I'm not just going to be able to do it off the cuff like this. I don't want this ad break in the middle going, and this is Ryanair, and you can get your flights. You know what I mean? So we'll need to see what it does. But thank you to everyone who's shown the interest in that. On the record, James, round us off.
I'm going to recommend a band called Ghost without the H in it. Lots of people insist on. I mean, Gav is a.
I think it's pronounced.
No, Gav is a pedant for pronunciation, but
It's
it is
pronounced
not
Ghost,
Ghost.
right?
It's not
It's
Ghost.
fucking
No,
Ghost.
mate, Google it. It's Ghost. It is spelled Ghost.
How did you get
Ghost.
to decide that? How did you just take away the H and just go, it's still Ghost?
Well, you can do whatever the fuck you want. I don't know. It wasn't me that did it.
Fucking Ghost.
So Ghost are a solo synthwave. If you're into Perturbator and Carpenter Brute, then you'll know what I mean. If you like electronic music, if you fancy a fucking getting your white glow sticks out and waving your white gloves with your glow sticks and waving them around, then if you're like a 90s raver, maybe you should go and have a listen to this, because it's yeah, super fun, super catchy, super upbeat, and these bands are in some way connected to the metal scene. You know, we've had Carpenter Brute and Perturbator at Arctangent in the past, and I really hope to get Ghost at Arctangent. I've tried. The new album's really cool, really fun. So yeah, check them out.
Do you know a festival that has had Ghost? Damnation. They played in 2019, I believe. And we never really had a space for them. I think they were touring with they're touring with another band, and we put them on the sort of the one unofficial or official at that point after party, and it just came on. It was excellent. See the people who managed it, it was great. Just had a row of strobe lights at the front, and he had just this because for whatever reason it ticks a box with like black metal fans. I don't know if there's. I mean, it was a black metal package he was touring with, but it was great. It was absolutely great. It's definitely one of those ones for if you can get them later in a tent and having a bit of a party.
Yeah, it's a headline. I mean, the earliest you got a headline a tent or an after party would be perfect.
Aye,
Um,
I definitely one of the ones who was people who were still had their wits about them, and some who didn't, who made it down to stylists for that after show had a lot of fun. So I likewise, if I ever get a chance to get Ghost back, Ghost obviously.
Ghost.
Fuck's sake, don't start getting pedantic with
Well,
it.
now I can correct you. I feel like totally freed by it, and unless I say amazing, I'm okay. I'm safe.
Amazing. So I'm going a trees inspired now. I've noticed when I'm looking at the stage time, there's a Camp Frabbit. So I understand is that a sort of fan inspired but festival supported site where bands can play?
Yeah, so we have a number of camps, and they're always driven by the fans. So there's a Camp Reuben for years, Camp Turner. So just like if you're a Frank Turner fan, they all get together and they organise Camp Turner. And Camp Frabbit was, um, when Scott, when it happened with Scott, they were booked to play 2000 Trees,
Yeah.
and obviously that didn't happen. And yeah, that some people got in contact and they were like, "Can we do a Camp Frabbit?"
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, this is a combination of two of my great loves, which are Frightened Rabbit and Manchester Orchestra. Frightened Rabbit are a special, special, special band to me. My wedding day playlist had Frightened Rabbit. The night that I proposed to my missus had Frightened Rabbit on it. Everything I've ever really done. We went to see them doing the anniversary or a live show, the whole midnight organ fight at Paisley Abbey, which was one of the best shows that I've ever been to. And that album is a special place because there's not a lot. My wife doesn't like metal music or really a lot of stuff I listen to, so there's very few artists that we can share a night with. And Frightened Rabbit are definitely one of them, and done it a lot of times live, including at 2000 Trees back in I don't know 2011 or 2012. So when they done the is it Tiny Celebrations, the album where they had all the other artists, including Biffy Clyro, doing covers. Manchester Orchestra done one of my favourite tracks, My Backwards Walk. Now, no one was ever going to do it better than Scott Hutchison would do it, but this is as close as it gets, because is it Andy Hull? For far.
Andy, thanks for doing that, Gav. Appreciate it. Andy Hull.
Brilliant. It's absolutely spectacular. I mean, oh my God, I'd love to see them do that live. I don't know if they do play it live, but I'd love to see them do that live. And there's the best of both worlds. Sort of the love for Frightened Rabbit at Trees, I'm sure, this weekend, and Manchester Orchestra, who will be playing tonight as you listen to this.
Yeah, and one thing you and I should do, which I haven't said to you before, is at like sort of 11 p.m. ish on probably Thursday, we'll go for a wander up into the campsite because they're all near each other. So you go up into the campsite. There's Camp Frabbit, Camp Turner, and there's another, like, we call them busk boxes. It's basically a place where you can. It's all unplugged. People stand up with their acoustic guitar and they sing some songs, and you will see. Well, as Frank Turner hinted that he was going to do it, and
around.
I've seen him do it before. And sometimes you're up there, and I like organize a festival, and I have no idea what random stuff you're going to miss if you're not there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is like literally someone will tell Gaslight Anthem, they'll be excited, and they'll just go for a wander and play. So it's worth checking out, and it's cool. There'll be like 300 people just stood there silently listening to someone at midnight or 1 a.m.
If I couldn't be more excited, because every now and then I forget, because I'm a bit like, oh, I'm really looking forward to Spanish love songs. Oh, I'm really looking forward to Melody. Every now and then I forget, like, Manchester Rocks are playing, and then that song will be like, fucking got to see Manchester Rocks next week. All we need to do is get this podcast knocked on the head out the way successfully and enjoy that day. So
Yeah,
I cannot fucking wait. James, I will literally see you next week.
amazing. Looking forward to it, mate.